under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to this September 18th Board of Commissioners meeting. Before we move to public comment, I do want to take a moment and remember Mr. Wayne Williams, a former commissioner who passed on September 7th. He was very active in the community. He was a staple in the ag community, worked as the Purdue Extension Office ag educator for 37 years, and just a well-respected individual that we lost in our community. So I think it's appropriate for us to honor him and thank him for his service over those times, and I know his family will miss him greatly. Okay, move on to public comment. Karen?
You're up.
I assume that's you. Yeah, if you could go to the podium, that way the YouTube will catch it. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for that, for Wayne. That was very thoughtful.
He's a great guy.
As you know, I was here 6 months ago talking about the animal control, and I'm just here to basically just get an update on how that's going. I know that Bert was going to talk with Don, I think maybe, or someone with the city. I can tell you right now that the dispatch is getting really frustrated. We've talked to a few different people. I've called myself on occasion, and other people have talked to them on occasion, and what they say is that they only go out between 8 to 4, and that's only if they want to. And that's dispatch's words. That's not my words. And also that I've talked to a few officers, and I know that they're frustrated. So my question is, again, what is the money that the county is giving to the Humane Society going to? It's titled as animal control. Is it animal control, or is it just housing and feeding, which is fine if it's worded that way? I just would like to get some clarification, and I think that the county would like the clarification. I mean, there was a big incident where there was an animal dropped off at the Humane Society. It was all over Facebook. The mayor shared it on her page. And, somebody took it and tied it up. Well, yes, that's bad. But if they're not going to come pick them up, people are desperate on what to do. You can't just take them out and put them in the fence. So I don't know the situation. I don't know if the guy hurt the animal, whatever, but it got so blown up. But I understand why that may have happened, because there really isn't an animal control from my experience. So my question again is, what is going on with the money that is going? Is it listed as animal control, and how is that working? And is there an animal control, or is it just for housing of the animals? Just to clarify.
Well,
Weaver,
I'd like
go
to
ahead.
address that if I could.
Yeah.
You're correct. I met with the board and actually the staff probably 4 weeks ago, and we spent a long period of time discussing some of the shortfalls that we had, went over numbers, etc. We went over the contract, we went over the things that they were not doing, I went over the complaints that we've had and so forth. So in that period of time, then I also met with the president himself in reference to some things. And then, to be honest with you, just Friday, I had another meeting with just the board and their one director. And the mayor and myself had been in all of those meetings. I had another gentleman with me also, Jeff Shanowitz from the council. We have met approximately 5 times now discussing many of the shortcomings that we've got. And I'll be honest, we have a tough situation because it is not large enough to take every cat that we have in the city. The cities and the cats are
Oh, I know.
a problem. And the feral cats, they can't handle them at all.
I understand that.
The other problem that they have, quite honestly, is an employee problem in that they can't afford, well, first of all, they can't get good people. It's no different than the restaurants and everywhere else. Getting a good person to be, I don't mean this negatively, but a dog catcher, cat catcher, whatever, it's difficult to find somebody to do it and get it on the right time. money is their shortcoming. They're continually trying to get as much animals out as they can, but they're full up. And so once you get to a certain point where there's no more room in the inn,
Right.
it becomes an issue. The city has agreed, in the last 4 or 5 years, the city has not participated in helping them. I don't have the numbers with me, but as you may figure out, probably 75% of the calls are city animals,
Right.
and the rest are county animals.
Right.
At the point right now, our budget was approved for $105,000 that the county's going to contribute, and for the first time, the city's going to contribute $50,000.
Okay.
So, for the first time in 4 or 5 years, the city's at least getting involved also and putting their money into the program. Our concerns are the shortcomings that we're getting. You know, we don't like the police. I've talked to Renee a couple of times. I've got the reports, number of calls, et cetera. Again, it's a staffing problem. They have now, they have somebody committed to become I would call it a dog catcher, but somebody that's going to be on call. And so they'll have somebody on call after hours from 4 o'clock, you know, on a 24-hour situation. We're still working on the contract. In fact, I was going to give it to Mr. Little. In fact, you might have gotten an email from one of the board members yesterday. I don't know. She said she's going to send it to you over the weekend. But we're greatly working on pinning down some of the shortcoming falls. They're also going to take some of the money that they have in savings and buy some additional kennels so that they can put some additional kennels in and so forth for the dogs. We've covered in great detail the fact that, you know, you can't tell an 85-year-old person to go out and catch the dog, and we'll come by and get it after you've got it caught. Again, it's a young staffing problem, and sometimes the employees are not necessarily doing their job, and they're aware of that, and it's being addressed. So,
I guess, and that's great. My question is still, I guess, my question is still, is the money that's delegated from the county going towards animal control or animal care? It's just where it needs to be defined, because that's where everybody is so confused. And, you know, I get people calling me and talking to me just because I used to be out there and everything, and, you know, I've been involved in the animal world, but that's, you know, I don't have an answer, and I'm not sure that there is a defined answer in any of that. I mean, I understand that they have a housing problem and they have a staffing problem, and I get that, believe me, I know, I've been there. I've been there with Arnie's, I've been there with the Humane Society, I've seen it myself, I had to do kennels myself, so I get it. But my question isn't about how they're handling their animals. It's animal control itself. That's the concern.
So
Well,
I'm not-
well, go ahead. I'll say my 2 bits when you're
Yeah.
done.
I'm not so sure that, and I'll be honest, I'll have to check to see if they actually break those two down. We had a discussion about some of the money issues that they're doing, of course, and
Can you see where I'm coming from when we're saying we're given this money? What is it being used for, is the question.
in my opinion, it has to be used for both.
Okay.
I mean,
And that's fine.
quite honestly, you know, you can't catch a dog and use that money to catch it and then
100%.
put it in there and not use it for, you know,
I agree.
food, water,
Yes.
spading, neutering. So, you know, I don't know how much money is a breakdown between the two, but quite honestly, that's their job, is to do that, not mine, in my opinion.
Sure.
I do know that we're asking and looking at the financials on a quite regular basis, but I can't tell you what the breakdown is and how much is one or the other. Again, I think it comes 50-50. I don't know that that's the case, but, you know, if you catch an animal, you got to take care of it. And then there are steps that they are doing. Quite honestly, they're using, they're working hard as a volunteer board. As you know, they go to the Colts games and clean up
Yep.
trash out of a game and so forth. You know, so they're picking up about 50% of the money that's being given to them by government. So, you know, if we're doing 155,000, they've got another 155,000 that they're collecting through various organizations.
Awesome.
And I don't know if you've noticed just recently, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, their Facebook, they've increased their advertisement, trying to get rid of the animals at the same time. I personally have called around the other counties, and they're all struggling with exactly the same thing.
That is a big, if we could just get people to spay and neuter their animals, that'd be great.
Exactly.
But that's,
Your issues are being addressed.
okay.
I think that's a very valid question, and I've asked myself for a long time, and it's obvious that it's being used for both. I think if you read the ordinance I sent you,
Yes.
did you get it?
Yes.
So in 2005, the ordinance clearly states if there's an animal they've caught and it's been there more than 4 days, it's to be put down. So our ordinance hasn't changed on the
Right.
county side. So sometime between 2005 and now, they have changed they've taken upon themselves not to follow the ordinance, and it's become, and this is gonna sound nasty, but it's a retirement home for animals. And, that's a self-inflicted financial problem, and the not having room, that's self-inflicted by them, And it's
Well,
like you said, people aren't spaying and
Right.
neutering, and they're not taking care of their animals, and they're not responsible. And now here we are, we're talking about this again. And we talked about this the first year I was a commissioner, and it's been an ongoing problem. And, so,
Well, I know that when I was there, we ran into this issue where we had animals in the halls. And it got to the point where it was like, we had to make tough decisions.
right,
Because that's not humane either.
right.
So, it is the public's, making that aware is a huge issue. And I know you can't force people to fix their animals or not breed their animals, but that is where it comes down to, and they're a 401 or a 501c3, so they can do whatever they want. It's their business. But when it comes to, like you said, retiring animals, when they post on there, we've had this animal for 1,000 days or whatever, and I know that they've had that a lot. That I don't want to kill any animals.
Well, I don't either. I've got 5 cats and 3 dogs.
Yep, I hear you. I'm the same.
I mean,
But when does it come, again, are we paying to house these animals for how long?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that person to make that decision, but somebody has to make that
Right.
decision. So anyhow, Mike, if it could be clarified somehow, I know that the public would really appreciate that, try to figure out. Because I'm telling you, I see it all the time, I hear it all the time, I got people calling me, and it's like I'm not even involved in it anymore.
yeah, I saw it yesterday myself. There was 2 police officers were chasing a dog around the
Yeah.
neighborhood of the fire department, and then
Yeah.
later I saw there was an animal bite problem, and it said attempted to contact animal control, no answer.
Right.
So I mean,
Yeah. So that's the big issue. It's like you're paying for this, but nothing's being done because it's titled as animal control under what you guys give. That's what makes it confusing for everybody, and that's why everybody's like, why aren't we getting animal control? So when it comes to talking about, Bert, when it comes to that, whenever you go back, that's why people are so upset and in arms and confused. And I know nobody's coming and talking, but they are talking to me, and I'm just,
sure.
and I don't want to have to be everybody's mouthpiece, but I also want to make sure things are done properly, and, that's my passion is animals, so I just want to make sure that things are going right. And, we have issues down because we live down by the Humane Society, so we always get the runoff of animals that get dumped that always come down our road. So it is a big issue. And, talking to the police officers, and they're like, well, call us personally because you're not going to get anything from the Humane Society. I'm like, I don't want to call the police and have them taken off of what they're supposed to be doing to have to go chase after a dog. So, again, I'm just here to clarify. I'm not here to badmouth anybody at all. I know that they do a great job with the animals. I'm not complaining about that at all. I've been there, I've done that, I know what it's like. So that's where I'm coming from, and if you could just keep updating, that'd be great.
I think I want to say 2 things real quick. Bert's working on it, and we can amend that language or make that language more specific in the contract. The next step, though, will be how is it enforced? Because just because it's in the
Right.
contract and they decide not to follow through, well, then what's our enforcement? And then what's our alternative option? And I don't know that we have an alternative option. I mean, it's not like there's just a lot of businesses out there running around taking care of animals that we can contract somebody else. You know, ultimately, we are the contractor, and we're paying them to do a service. Now, if they don't provide that service, typically you would look elsewhere, but if there's nowhere else to look, it makes it.
Well, it used to be, I know that if police would pick up an animal, that they would meet them there and they would, for the drop-off, and it's not like that anymore. So I don't know what the police do with them. When they pick them up, I know they pick them up, but I don't know what they do with them.
Police
So,
aren't picking them up. I'm in dispatch, police aren't picking them up, nor should they.
No.
right,
Nor should
I
they.
agree. But
Yeah.
that's what I was told by an officer.
I can tell you that in meeting with the board at this point in time, they're aware of their issues. And like I said, sadly to say, it's really dollars and cents in a lot of ways. Number two, it's a volunteer board, as you know. It's a fact that we're overrunning our community right now with both dogs and cats.
Yep.
And quite honestly, you know, like was just mentioned, you know, we could find other sources, but I can tell you we can't run a dog situation on $105,000. It's a staffing problem in that they don't have enough money. They've hired somebody else to help do that maybe on the off hours can do. Even in the daytime, sometimes you can call and they'll send a driver to Kirkland, and by the time they get there, the dog is gone.
Yep.
And so, you know, it is a frustrating job that they have, and although, yeah, I believe that we can put the hammer on them a little bit and have been, and address those situations. And in my opinion, the shortcoming is both the city and the county need to be in this battle together. We've agreed to get the city back involved a little bit. You know, I know their 50 is not the same as our 100, but, you know, in order to have somebody pick them up and have somebody get them and take them and drive them somewhere, it takes money.
Yep.
And the long and the short is they don't have that money. So, you know, the first thing that we've done this year, in my opinion, is let them understand that we're trying to help them in their situation, but they got to turn around and produce also. And they're willing to try that.
Okay.
But again, it's a volunteer board, so, you know, you can only hit so much and they'll be walking out the door. And I can tell you the county doesn't want to take care of and operate that, and there's no way we'll do it on 105,000. So it's it's a little bit of walking on thin ice sometimes.
Right.
So.
Yep, I know. I understand that. I was just here to clarify what that is. And that's basically that's why I'm here.
Still work in progress.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So that's what I've got.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much,
Thank you.
Karen.
We have Liz Stitzel with the LUPAC 0923-372, along with ordinance 2023-06, and then an area plan update. So it's like a couple things here. If you would take
Yeah.
us through those, please.
Good morning. Yeah, as you noted, LUPAC 0923-372. The Area Plan Commission considered this September 5th and gave it a favorable recommendation. This is about a 2.4 acre piece of land. It's on the south side of State Road 38, directly on the west side of the town of Mulberry, adjacent to the town boundary line. The proposed use is for Dollar General. They're working their way through that process. You've got the standard LUPAC paperwork, but in this case, the Plan Commission also recommended a series of 4 commitments. These were requested by the town of Mulberry, and the developer and landowners have agreed to them. Requiring a privacy fence on the east side of the property, an east-west sidewalk from West Street to the edge of the rezoned area, so there's connectivity between the new commercial development and the town sidewalk, a voluntary annexation waiver, and that the developer has got to build the infrastructure across their new lot to come up to Mulberry's closest point of their infrastructure. So although the Plan Commission has given this a favorable recommendation, I would recommend as staff tabling or continuing this for a hot minute. And the reason is because when there are commitments, we ask the landowner to sign those before the commissioners make their ruling, and part of that commitment signature authorizes us to record those. State law says they are not binding unless they are recorded. So my only collateral to make sure they're signed is us having not adopted. If you adopt and they're not signed, there is the risk that they don't authorize the recording of the commitments, and then we can't enforce them. So, or if the land sells, it won't ride to the next owner. I anticipate that we'll be able to get these signed this next week. It's just, there's actually 4 different people that own this land together right now, so, the petitioner themselves did contact me, last week to let me know they had a conflict and were not gonna be able to be present today. Jordan sits on the Area Plan Commission, and he had indicated to them at the last meeting that there's also a drainage board concern perhaps, and that you would very likely be pushing this a little bit, but state law says that we should bring it to your next meeting after ours, so wanted to get it to you. There's a 90-day time clock on anything, whether it's a rezoning or an ordinance change, in which if you don't act, then the Plan Commission takes effect. But all that to say, there's no rush. The developer is aware of the drainage board concern and prepared to go talk to them about that. Meanwhile, if you have any questions for me, I don't want to bore you with specifics if there's not something you want to know, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to table it until the commitments can be signed, and also I think what I was referencing there was typically the process is they've already went to the drainage board before they come to the area plan. This time they came to the area plan first, so my suggestion was that they needed, before we made a decision, we would want it to go to drainage board to make sure the drainage was approved. So they kind of need to do that before we move forward with it as well, so.
I don't disagree. I believe, in fact, we should table it for those reasons. But at the same time, I've had several phone calls from people from Mulberry that are concerned about what's going on. And, you know, I honestly don't know enough at this point in time to give them an answer one way or the other, but I can tell you that there are many people who are opposing it in the town of Mulberry.
Mulberry had a very large meeting. They probably had 150 in attendance,
Yeah.
as they were recommending, because of course Mulberry's other option is to annex this first and then do the rezone themselves. Ultimately, that's where those commitments came from, is addressing some of those concerns. Now, well, there are some, this is going to be a market store, meaning it will have, it'll be a little larger at 12,000 square foot, and it will have actual groceries, meats, produce, you know, those kinds of things. So certainly one of the things that we've heard, those are those who feel there doesn't need to be a store any closer than Lafayette. I will note that land is currently Zone B5, so warehousing can go there, large grain handling operations can go there, auction barns can go there. This is not ag or residentially zoned land at the moment, so that was also part of the conversation, as this is actually a down zone in terms of intensity, but if they wanted to put a retail use on it right now, they'd go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception. I think the reason they're wanting to do the rezone is because a special exception use, if they ever, say, do an addition on the building, they have to come back for another special exception. So special exception uses, anytime they change something, have to come for another hearing. Permitted uses are guaranteed rebuilds if they take damage or if they want to add on. So I think that's why they approached it this way. But I am aware that there are some, and that's part of why the town is asking for that fence, is to buffer the neighborhood, and make sure that people aren't trying to walk, you know, back behind. Certainly, there were about, I'd say, 150 people at Mulberry's meeting. The Area Plan Commission did not see that large group follow across. So that wasn't something that was able to be discussed there. It was advertised, it was posted, people were definitely aware of it. We did announce at the Mulberry meeting, I was present, that the area plan was going to hear it and what date, so people did know. I'm not sure why they didn't, you know, why they called, whether then following through. And then the Plan Commission, we did announce that it was going to come to this meeting.
So we had 2 meetings, because we tabled it at area plan, and we had a larger contingency at that one. At that point, the concern was that they had not went to the town board and talked or discussed any of it, so we moved it out another month, and they ended up going to the town board, and like we said, at our last meeting, we had, I think, 4 people, and the town, and we kind of basically at the area plan, although once they met the standards, we took the recommendation of the town board that was to move forward with this. They were in favor of it, so
I think I don't know a whole lot, but I've had some phone calls, and I understand that the town board has 3 new town board members going on who are opposed to it, and the present town board that's there are trying to push it through before December or January, so that they'll be leaving. So I think there's a
Yeah.
frustration there too, so.
What
like I
month
said,
is this?
I don't,
September, October, November, December. So even if you don't act, it will, just based on timelines and what state law says, how long you can tell a developer, no, we won't answer you.
I get that. and
You're
I'm-
gonna be-
I'm a little frustrated with this because you alluded to it yourself. They could have just annexed this and taken care of it themselves, but yet we've been thrown in here
Right.
for no reason.
I don't know. I think there's reasons. I actually like it when towns don't try to annex and shift everything all at
That's
once.
fine.
I think
don't
there's
like
reasons
getting
they,
pushed
they
into
haven't, they are gonna
controversial
supply
decision when
utilities.
It's not mine to
not
make.
your area.
Well, certainly you could choose to deny it, and then the developer can decide if they want to come back as a special exception.
Second question, is this the same developer that developed in Michigan Town?
That I do not know. So this story is a little different. My understanding, and I think they need to talk for themselves, because I can't completely tell you internally, but what they told the Area Plan Commission is this particular store is being used as, I guess I'm going to say an example, for lack of a better word, but Dollar General themselves is going to retain ownership and manage it, whereas most Dollar Generals are managed and run by a developer. It's expected this is going to be more similar to the one in Kirkland, which is a little more upscale, except it's going to be a little bit bigger, and Dollar General is going to retain ownership of it.
It's
So-
definitely not more upscale than Michigan Town.
Well, I don't know about Michigan, I meant Kirkland. Kirkland is downtown there, they redeveloped 4 lots and put in landscape buffers.
We didn't have anything to do with Kirkland, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Because it's inside.
In fact,
town.
Mulberry referenced Kirkland a lot in talking about what they wanted to have.
it went through.
Oh,
area
it
plan
went through area plan, I'm sorry, yep,
Commissioners.
it's in the core of Kirkland, but there were a lot of similar concerns in that town.
So,
I'm not opposed to the project, I'm just opposed to the way this goes down.
Yeah, I actually wish Michigan Town had not annexed first, just because it switched jurisdictions, and I don't think,
I don't care about that.
you know,
so let's, it sounds like no matter what, we need to table
Yeah.
it.
Would be my
Then
opinion.
you guys can ask the questions to the developer.
I think that's
get
the
some
appropriate-
clarity. Bert, if you can have the conversations, because the new board members had the opportunity to come express their opinion
Nobody
at
showed
2
up.
area plan, and they didn't show up. So, if we can let
Yeah.
them know ahead of time, then they can at least come express that opinion
and
here.
I think it's a hard thing for, for legislative bodies, you guys as well as them, that about 150 people, and there were some objectors, but it wasn't the majority. A lot of those people were excited about having an option to get groceries locally too. So I don't know, I think there's 2 sides to that argument, and I can't tell you why town board members fall one way versus another. I think we could also reach out and let the town of Mulberry know if you want to be able to speak to them directly. Ask them to send somebody to your next meeting.
Nobody's here. Their town board wants it, and they're not here.
So town boards don't
Yeah,
typically
yeah,
follow
they were
this
at our
through.
meeting.
They were at
I
area
don't-
plan.
We had
Liz?
3 members at our meeting, I think.
I don't care if it's typical or not. I'm making an observation, that's it.
Okay, so do we have a motion to
I'll
table?
make
it
the
in
motion
either
that this be
direction?
tabled until further information is discovered.
Okay. I'll second.
Third.
No, third, okay. Motion carries 3-0 to table the LUPAC and ordinance.
Do you know when you plan to bring it up for discussion? The developer did ask so they could come back. They want to be able to be here to talk to you.
Should be our next
We
meeting.
could do it October 2nd if.
Okay,
the-
I will-
mean, I was kind of going to coordinate with the developer a little bit. since we
Yeah,
had
they
some
wanted
time
to be
with
here
Bill.
today
I
and
think
just
they-
couldn't be.
It'd be good
So-
for Commissioner Weaver and Commissioner Hewitts to talk to the developer, and then maybe we could coordinate with the town board to get it. So if it needs to be that first one in October or the second, it
Okay.
doesn't matter to me.
I can call both and let them know. I mean, ultimately, the town is involved and relevant, but it's the developer that gains or loses. Or, some other retail, if the developer doesn't go through it, it. But I can coordinate and see if they want to be that first meeting in October, if there's conflicts there, and then let Jerry know if you prefer.
Okay.
Okay.
That will work.
Okay.
Do you have any area plan updates?
I think everything that we've got in progress right now is continued until October 2nd, that we've dealt with. You did ask me to bring up, I believe there was a truck question in balance from council that needed to be discussed by the
Yeah,
commissioners.
To kind of walk the group through that.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong on any of the information that doesn't come from my office, but my understanding from the council meeting I was in there at the beginning of budgets is the county surveyor purchased a truck, and then something came available that was similar but closer to what he wanted. So he changed which truck he was purchasing, and he asked the dealership to cancel the original order, but the dealership, on their end, made the error of not canceling it. So we ended up with an extra truck in play, and county council would prefer to not pay the year upcharge, to wait till next year. Our older truck, our Dodge, and the county surveyor's truck were purchased the same year. I had planned on bringing mine in next year's budget, just because there were other things in play for us. But then when this came up, it was kind of discussed about whether or not it would make sense to just go ahead and swap them out now and get rid of the Dodge and be done with it and not pay the extra for next year's model.
So she's asking for our approval for the vehicle for this year rather than in next year's budget because there was a discrepancy in the surveyors. We got two vehicles basically, and we were only supposed to get one. So going with the new handbook and what I'll mention here later about vehicles and capital assets, she's here requesting our blessing to move forward with her receiving or taking that truck this year.
Versus the truck going to somebody else or some other use.
Yeah, so I'll
But in my opinion, it would make sense to purchase that now. One, for the cost. Two, we're not too sure what's going to happen with supply and demand to begin with in another year. So, we could be,
Are you gonna keep the other trucks? So you have two?
We have two now, so the Dodge,
You have three?
my understanding is the commissioners are going to be
We'll get
trading
rid of
in or
that.
selling the Dodge.
Yeah.
And then we'll have
she'll stay, her department will stay at two trucks.
the Department staying at
Two
two.
I
now.
don't care if you have three. I'm just.
So, well, if we had an inspector hired right now and then, some other shifts, maybe that'd be a conversation, but right now I don't think there's a
Gotcha.
reason. And this truck is, it's rusting out underneath. It's got some issues just from being on and off job sites. So I'm not sure it would behoove us to keep spending more money trying to keep it maintained.
I'm okay with
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all.
So good on the truck.
Okay. Is there anything else you have for me? I know Kat was corresponding with Bert on a couple of the ones he
Nothing,
mentioned
just-
at the last
Just
meeting.
continue to follow up and continue to address those.
Yep, I'll pass that on. She's out in the field this morning.
I know that you'd emailed us about a potential solar development at Rossville.
Yeah.
Any updates on that? I was able
So
to go to the town meeting the other night, but the reason
town
I'm bringing
of-
this up is because I can see this is going to happen again. This is for you.
Yeah.
For you, this is going to get run down the line.
Yeah.
And it's going to be all good to go, and then they're going to come in here and say, if you guys don't approve this, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen. You'll be the bad guy.
well, I don't know that there's good or bad guys per se, right? Everyone's trying to make good decisions. I think there's a world of difference between the Dollar General and the solar. So
Well, that's fair. I'm just asking.
Rossville has called a special meeting at the end of this month. I don't have a phone on me at the moment. I want to say it's the 24th, but I will check and email it for sure. And that's inside the town. The developer is going to
It's
be
not in the
presenting
county.
stuff. Well, ultimately, though, right now, the developer is looking at having part of the development inside the urban growth area boundary and part out. The ordinance says they cannot apply or even talk to us as an entity unless they have a written approval from the town on the part that's inside their urban growth area boundary, which is county land, but it's designated for their annexation and development under zoning. So one of two things will happen, I would predict. Either they're going to get that and then they're going to move forward, or they're going to decide that that's going to be too much of an uphill battle and revise their plans to stay out of the urban growth area boundary. Unlike the Mulberry situation, there's no discussion that I'm aware of Rossville wanting to annex this. And one of the things that is part of that conversation is if that goes in that location, and Rossville seems to be tending to grow that direction right now, like, is that going to become something that's then going to limit town growth? So this kind of all, this is part, I'm not sure until that meeting comes where that opinion's going to come out, but I think, it's just a very different use than the other. It's 80 acres, I want to say 100 acres. It's smaller than what we're dealing with north of town. It does not have approval yet to push onto the grid. They're very, very early in their process. I think they're looking at maybe 3 years before they'd even be talking about starting the development process. So they're at the point of trying to figure out whether or not it's going to be feasible and whether or not they can even find a way to push power on. I think they find out in November whether or not they can push power on, and I think they're not planning to take any action of any kind officially until they know if they have a feasible location. My recommendation to them was get through the town meeting, see what the area and the people think, and then they need to start talking to Drainage Board and Commissioners, since that vote's going to come through. They obviously need to know whether or not they're going to even be able to push power out. If they can't, then the project will die right there.
Yeah.
So I would say this is far from being it's going to come through type of level, but it's definitely more
Been
than,
here a long time. I've seen
You
it
know.
many times.
it's definitely more than just somebody totally kicking tires. I think they do have contracts for the land, so.
I agree with Josh. I'm a little concerned with all of this, quote, annexation, we're gonna take the ground over and so forth, and then you gotta come to the county to get our approval, but they've got all these other steps done. They've actually forcing it to the place where we're being forced to make a decision. And I have a little bit of concern about the way it's being handled sometimes. Even in Michigan Town's situation, they had all their i's and t's dotted, and it's our ground to begin with. It's not Michigan Town, but they're gonna annex it, and so the threat is that, if you don't do it, we're gonna do it. And, I just.
Yeah, they took it. It never went through us.
I understand.
So-
And now we've
Yeah.
got Rossville, who's thinking about some of it's in Rossville and some of it's in the county.
No.
So,
Rossville does not want to annex that area, and their town board members that came to their initial preliminary, we'll see what their opinion is once they have their public meetings, but they were really not on board with any of solar being in the residential land that's pre-zoned for town development. They've got some housing developers that are looking at that side of town right now, so I get no inclination from Rossville that they're wanting to annex 100 and some acre solar development. I think this one's gonna, whether it happens or whether it doesn't, it's not only gonna be a commissioner decision, but it's gonna stay. I mean,
Yeah.
good grief, the edge of that is on the other side of, I don't know if you know where the agribusiness is, it's that field behind that. So the urban growth area boundary gives them like a half mile, so you're talking almost a mile outside of town. They'd have to grow a bit before that would be adjacent.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else?
No, I'll try to keep you updated on the solar side, as I know, I am out of town for a conference on that meeting, so if any of you were able to attend it, I know I would appreciate that. I think Kat's gonna try to get up there too, but we have a planning, I think it's BZA, we have a BZA meeting that night too, so.
Okay.
What date did you say
Yeah,
it was?
when-
I'm sorry.
Well, BZA, so it's gonna be Tuesday. I wanna say that's the 24th. Do you
In
have?
Rossville.
In Rossville. Yep, it's at the pavilion in the town park because
Oh,
they're
okay.
expecting a crowd.
26.
Okay.
Is that the 26th?
26.
Okay.
Awesome.
I
Thank
know it's the BZA night, so, all right, thank you so much.
Yep.
Rick with a highway update. Good morning, Rick.
What happened to the Manson Dollar General?
Say that again.
What happened to the Manson Dollar General?
That was only when the trail was going.
All right. Central Paving's here. They're working on Kelly Road. They started Saturday. We lost a truck driver. He was going to do something else. Bridge 67, they got the beams set on that last week, so they'll be getting ready to pour cement pretty soon. Right now, we're berming roads and we're cutting some brush. We got a crew berming and a crew cutting brush. We sold a patch truck last Friday at the auction in Pendleton, and we got $7,620 for it. And it cost us, their commission was $693, so that gives us a balance of $69.27. So I thought you guys didn't like to hear that, so that's all I got.
How long will the Kelly Road project take?
I'm hoping they'll be done in a couple weeks,
Okay.
hopefully sooner.
All right.
They was here Saturday and they did the milling, and they started doing some, they're supposed to be doing some wedging today.
They're out there.
Okay.
Okay. Question, Rick?
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
All right, thanks. Go to old business. There's nothing listed, but I do have something. I forgot last time. If you remember, we took the vote on the LHD contract for our health insurance advisor. One thing else we probably should have done in doing today is voting on our health insurance plan, although there's no increase, just to memorialize it publicly. So there were, the health insurance premiums stay the same. The basic life actually does have an increase, but that's county absorbed 100%. And then the dental is going up 5%, which is the first time it's gone up in, I think, 7 or 8 years, right, Britt? Something like that. So just to equate, that'll be split 50-50, and it roughly comes out for an employee only, it's about $2, employee with a family, $5 increase. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we accept the health insurance plan again, as it was done last year.
Second.
Motion carries 3-0. Okay, now at new business, first item is we have a EMS clinical affiliation agreement. Stephen is unable to be here today, but he had sent this ahead of time. I think everybody had a chance to review it.
Yeah.
So I'll, unless there's comments on it or questions, entertain a
I have
motion.
none.
Make a motion, we approve the EMS clinical affiliation agreement.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0. I'll just sign this for that.
And that is for the paramedic class.
Yeah,
It's getting ready to start here, hopefully,
soon.
next month.
Yeah. Okay, next item, we have been working on our copier lease that expires at the end of the year. And we currently are with Braden, and we ended up going and getting a couple other quotes. So bear with me as I read through this just to put the information out there. So for the Braden lease, we are going to keep the same copiers in most all the offices, except for there's going to be 13 new ones. And so they went through, they met with departments to figure out specifically which one of those are. In the past, we were under a 5-year agreement. This would be for a 3-year agreement, so 36 months, and the lease payments would be for $2,400. And then it has a maintenance contract that is based on usage. And over the last 2 years, our usage, that comes out to roughly $1,400 a month. The next one is from Cardinal Copier Solutions. Their lease is for $2,980. And they have a service agreement for $1,500 a month. That is fixed. And their time frame is, it's a year-to-year lease. The third one is from ICC Business Products, and their 36-month lease is for $3,539.88, and they just provided the rates on the copying for service. They didn't specify like how much that would be per month, so I don't have a number for that, but the rates look a little higher than the other two companies. So
Okay.
So my recommendation, as I met with them and worked on it, would be to re-sign with Braden. Tom and I were able to also work on their contract, which we had some issues with that we wanted changed, and they met all of those. So some little things like they had in there, they could increase the price by 10% every year of the contract. We got it down to 2%. And then one that we've kind of been a stickler on just because of things that have happened is now it's settled in the state of Indiana instead of being in the state of Pennsylvania. So, and there was a few other items, but I think that'll end up being a savings for that line item in our budgets if we go with this route. So,
Good.
okay.
You recommended Braden.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we approve a new contract with Braden.
Second.
Okay, motion carries 3-0. We will sign a new contract with Braden for 36 months. Next item is a sign placement request form from the Frankfurt Lions Club for their fish dinner. The date of the event is October 5th, and they asked the sign be put up there for 14 days, and that it will be removed on the 6th of October. So,
I'll make a motion we approve the sign request.
Second.
motion carries 3-0. Okay, next up, department heads. Any department heads that would like to speak today? Renee, good morning.
IPSC had contacted me. That is who our state radio system is through. And it's been several years since they have been in and just provided, like for all first responders, like a reminder, especially we have lots of new responders from all agencies, just like how the radio system works, how it functions, just learning. And I went down to the police department. They're going to let us use their new training room because it's easy to get to and plenty of parking and things. It's in November, so we're going to do 2 different dates for all the responders, like November, I believe it's 14th and November 16th, like a 2 to 4 and then a 7 to 9 on both of those dates. And I've sent that out to all agency heads, police, fire, and EMS on Friday.
Okay.
So it's just a good learning and a reminder for those that have been on the system and then for new people as well. So last month, Rodney had scheduled, we had our LAPC seminar, Bert attended on that Saturday, and we had a decent turnout with things, and Rodney had scheduled the speaker. He had known him for years, and I think it was a good seminar. I don't think I've got anything else that I can think of off the top of my head, so I just wanted to put that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Yep.
Thanks.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Move to commissioner reports. Gentlemen?
Well, we've already spoke about the health department situation. I've met with them 4 or 5 times in various ways and means, and notes are being done, and, it's work in progress at this point. Getting close to try to finalize the agreement and so forth, but there's a lot of addressing that needs to continue to be done yet.
Okay. Commissioner Ewitz?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I have a few things, and maybe a little lengthy here, but I think they're important. So, first item is the courthouse exterior work. I was notified that it's supposed to start next week, the week of September 25th. So you'll start seeing some fencing and scaffolding around, and just bear with us as they start to work on the exterior. Obviously, it may be a little noisier than normal, but that's going to be part of the process.
Yeah.
So they're going to get started through the fall, and then once hard winter sits in, they'll stop and then come back in the spring. So did receive that email. Another thing, kind of 2 things related to both, again, go back to the handbook and some items that we're trying to clean up going into 24 in particular, is with vehicles or any capital asset purchases. Tom's working on an ordinance to put in place for the purchase or disposal of those, so it'll be very clear the process and how that needs to work. And so hopefully one of our meetings in October will have that. So just for clarification, just because it was put in the budget for a certain year, you still need to come to the commissioners to get approval on those type of purchases. So we're just adopting it. We'll have an ordinance to consider to adopt that will specify that so that it's clear. Similarly, with new jobs that may be approved in the budget, that's kind of the first step. Now, the second step is you come to the commissioners with a job description that needs to be approved for those jobs, and then we can move forward with that. So just kind of outlining that process. The last thing I have was I was able to represent Clinton County last week at a round table. We had Dr. Gupta, who is, if I can get this right, the director of the White House Office of National Drug Policy, visited Clinton County. And although our politics may not align, it was still good to sit down with him, show him what we're doing in Clinton County, in particular with 180 Recovery Center and the opioid situation. But one thing that I tried to make clear in that time that I had to speak for us and represent us was that, we deserve none of the credit. It is the people like Rodney and the Board of Health, Healthy Communities, 180 Recovery Center, Brianna's Hope, Trinity Hope. I know I'm forgetting some, but they're people with the boots on the ground that are
Yeah.
doing this work. And the impact they're making in our community is amazing. I mean, I heard 3 gentlemen who told their stories that had completed the 180, and it was just
Inspiring,
awesome.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just wonderful to hear and see them out in the community with jobs and working and have some ambition. And so I thought that was a great representation of our community, the people that were there to speak, but ultimately it was those stories that were true that I think had the most impact. And so just wanted to share that with you guys and let you know that we don't always see it. I don't see it, but the work that's going on at the ground level is fantastic, and we have great people doing it. With that, I'll move to our board business, which the first item is our claims. We have claims dated September 8th in the amount of $11,860.90. Claims dated September 15th in the amount of $1,418.54. Biweekly claims dated September 18th in the amount of $280,142.18. And court claims dated September 18th in the amount of $33,854.02.
Motion to approve claims.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0 on the claims. We do not have payroll this time.
Are we
Yeah.
getting paid?
We did 2 last time, right? And so it's
Okay.
being processed today, so I think everybody's getting paid. Next, we have our minutes from our last meeting, which was on September 5th. Have a motion for that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion carries 3-0 on the minutes. Our next meeting is October 2nd. It'll be here. And is there any other business that needs to come before the commissioners? Okay,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
thank you.
My phone is blowing up.